from Southern Maryland's weather leader. This is a JB Weather Report.
Hello and good evening. I'm forecaster John Bordash with you in the JB Weather Center this evening, and we are continuing to track what looks to be a high-impact winter storm across much of the region as we head into the day on Monday. Before we get too ahead of ourselves, you can go ahead and let me know, are you able to hear me? That's the first and foremost, most basic question I can ask, just to make sure that we are all good to go. And as that occurs, let me get a couple of things squared away on my side and make sure that we are good to go. Assuming you can hear me, one thing that is kind of a little bit of a change from yesterday in terms of the broadcast, I have put down a nice little snow ticker at the bottom, right? This tells you specific snow totals for specific locations. Now, if you join, and let's say right now it shows Charles County and you're waiting for Calvert County, right? Just got to wait a little bit for it to come back through, but a lot of our key locations are kind of shown down through there. But let's go ahead and get this started. So we've had a busy day today tracking our winter storm, looking at the latest information, and we still look on tap to be looking at an area of moderate to heavy snow along with some sleet to be moving into our region. We do currently, that's the old snowfall forecast. What I want to show you currently is what we have in terms of alerts. Most everybody through the southern mid-Atlantic has been upgraded to a winter storm warning. To the north of there, we are looking at a winter storm watch still in effect. So a little bit of a difference there, and this has gotten some people talking and asking some questions, and they're good questions, wanting to know why the difference, and does this mean that Southern Maryland is now indeed the bullseye? The most plain reason I can give for this, knowing that I don't control when alerts get issued or what alerts get issued, but the reason I believe the National Weather Service went ahead with this move is quite simply because this is the region, the winter storm warning area right now, that is the most likely to have high impacts, kind of regardless. If this were to be a storm that were to verify further to the north and put heavy snow focused in northern Maryland, in southern Maryland, you would still see moderate snow along with some moderate sleet, so together they'd bring a high impact. If we were to see this storm shift down to the south and put heavy snow in southern Maryland, that heavy snow is going to bring a high impact to southern Maryland with lower impacts up to the north. So kind of regardless of the solution, the area here in pink will see high impacts, kind of irregardless of the exact track of the storm. The areas to the north are really trying to see and hone in on what is the exact track of this storm, and I'm sure we'll get updates to this overnight tonight. This was a graphic I published earlier today, kind of outlining and giving you a quick overview as to what it is I am watching today. We're going to have a final call forecast out for you going into the day tomorrow, probably sometime tomorrow morning to give people enough time to get those last minute preparations together. But while we wait for that, this is a current look at what I'm watching. Our future view model powered by Cedar Point Federal Credit Union is starting to come into range now. We've started to get into a period of time where this model can look out and see that far into the future. This runs about 48 hours in advance. So this was our mid-afternoon run for you. And you can see that it has snowed pretty much area-wide right around 7 o'clock. So this is going to be Monday morning, looking at widespread areas of snow as that cold air drills down to the south. A few things I'm noting here, though. I do still think areas south of D.C. are going to be in a battle zone of heavy snow and mixing, and we can describe that in just a moment here in more detail. But I do think areas to the south of D.C. will be in that battle zone. I think the jackpot of highest totals is going to be through DC and just a little bit to the north. And there's probably going to be a very sharp cutoff to the north once you get north of the state line between who gets decent snows between 4 to 6 inches and who doesn't. And we're talking through southern parts of Pennsylvania there. But widespread high impacts are going to be likely, and this snow is possible to linger through Monday night. So we kind of get 2 waves of snow that we're going to be watching as we go throughout this. Let me show you what this future view model looks like in action as we put it together. Let's go ahead and pause this for you. And notice right away, we're at 8 p.m. here on Sunday. You have snow well down to the south and west. And actually, the version of this I want to bring up is going to be a version that's going to be kind of allow you to zoom in and see this in like a higher resolution. Let me bring you over and let's bring There we go. A little bit of a larger version for you. But you can see we have snow well down to the south and west, right around 8 p.m. on Sunday. The model shows rain out ahead of that, getting close to Leonardtown, but I'm not worried about that. Our model sometimes can have a hard time getting some of those precipitation types correct when it's light enough snow. So this actually, what's showing up as snow out in front, or showing up as rain out in front, really isn't anything hitting the ground. Our model has snow beginning to push into parts of southern Maryland and like through our neck of the woods by about 11. So I think the time frame we're still looking at for potential snow impacts to begin is as we approach midnight. So like 10 to 12 p.m. 12 p.m. to 12 a.m. is probably the most likely. Maybe some flurries before then, given current timing. One thing I've noted is sometimes these storms might like to move in an hour or two earlier than expected. So we'll call it 8 p.m. to 12 a.m. on Sunday for just to give you a broad range, but I think it's really closer to midnight we get that snow in here. Our model then shows widespread areas of snow, even some bands of heavy snow developing. This is 2 a.m. with temperatures that are sitting just below freezing, and that snow continues, and that mixing is well to the south. This model has it down near the Richmond area. I just told you that our model sometimes can have a hard time getting precipitation types correct. And this, I can kind of see this right now, where you get these heavier areas of precipitation kind of through here. This tells me this is where my model kind of wants to mix a little bit more with sleet. So that area outlined in red, I think, is really going to be your actual sleet zone early on. And that's what we're going to watch to see how far to the north is that able to track. By 4 a.m., you're still sitting with some decent snows kind of region wide, and that's going to help you pile up a quick 2 to 4 inches before you wake up here on Monday. We can see that our model then starts to get that snow, inching it a little bit further north, and this is now getting towards mid-morning. Do you remember what I just told you with the how this model sometimes can have a hard time with precipitation types, where we have these higher or like these deeper blues? This right here is really your sleet. Very little freezing rain on this run, but your sleet's kind of through here. It is punched up towards Washington, D.C., going through parts of Leonardtown, through parts of St. Mary's County, and I think that's a very likely solution here. And then just finishing this off, you can see that this model actually has rain getting into parts of southern Maryland by midday. I don't know if we'll actually switch over to all rain, but what I'm actually much more interested in is this area of dry air that is back to our west. I think what's going to end up happening, we've seen this happen a few times. I forecasted a few storms like this. I think we're probably going to see our initial burst of snow, and that may go over a period of sleet and freezing rain, kind of moving around, let's say 11 p.m. Sunday and stay with us through about 10 a.m. on Monday. I actually think after about 10 a.m. we might get into a little bit of a break. Maybe some flurries or rain showers, and people are going to be like, that's the storm. It's done with. What's going on? And what you don't see with my model, because it doesn't go out that far just yet, we have additional areas of snow developing back out here to the west. That is going to push through by the evening and give an additional second round of snow as early as about 4 o'clock. So it's going to be something I'm going to continue to watch. Let me get you back on over here. I've not issued a second call on snowfall totals. My first call forecast is still kind of where we are. I do want to share with you, though, what my latest blend of models looks like. So what our computers can do is take all of the different weather models, all of the different data, and kind of aggregate them together and get you an overall average. With that average, it puts out this map. So this isn't one specific model. This is kind of European, a little bit of American thrown in there, some Canadian, some German model put in there, all of it. And the general theme you see is that it still favors a widespread area of snow. We're still looking at about 6 inches anywhere you see that deeper purple, kind of from our region to the north to about the state line. You could see some hints of pink showing up north of the DC metro area. So that would be getting closer to about 8, 9, maybe 10 inches of snow between Washington and Baltimore. And you can see that thin stripe through there. That's really going to be the area I'm going to be looking at and focusing on, I think, for the highest totals. This was the first call forecast I had issued yesterday. We'll come back to the ice, but this is what was issued yesterday. If there is any adjustment I'm going to be making to this forecast, if I had to put one out right now, I would bring the northern edge of our snow and bring it to the south a little bit. So I still like the general idea of, I don't know, maybe like a 4 to 8 inch event here in Southern Maryland, maybe bring that total up a little bit. And then from about Washington on up towards about Baltimore, maybe more like a 6 to 10 ish, 5 to 9, 6 to 10. We'll iron out those details. But that's a nice general look right now. I can show you what some of my other models are doing this evening that we are continuing to watch. Let me get you my North American model. It's been an interesting model. It's showing something different than you might be used to seeing, given what's going on. I want this version, and let's get, I do want that. I don't want you though. So this is my North American model. You can see the timestamp up top. As we push this puppy on through, tomorrow is pretty quiet, and you can see that it might try to get a little bit of snow in as early as 10. The issue that this snow is going to have, and you can see how it kind of evaporated a little bit, the issue that we are going to have is that we are going to have a lot of dry air out here, dry and cold, still pushing in from the north. So as snow begins to push in, it's going to have a hard time falling initially. Like if I just replay that through so you can see what that looked like. Let's bring it back. You can see the snow never really advances. It kind of waits a little bit until the atmosphere moistens up. But by about midnight, this model, it's one of my warmer models, brings that snow band through quick, and then you see it has a crazy amount of dry air down to the south. Lots of dry air. That's going to be something I'm looking at for this system. And you can see that it really tries to hold that heaviest snow up to the north with almost very little happening. I don't think that there's going to be that much dry air on the southern side of this system. It's possible. I don't think it's that likely. But you can see it finally gets precip in here, and it does a lot of sleet and rain. And then you get that back end of snow that pushes through. The snowfall amounts I'm getting out of this model, they aren't the best. If you're a Southern Maryland snow lover, you can see that it puts the bulk of accumulation kind of through Northern Maryland, Central Pennsylvania, with very little down to the south. Conversely, I can show you what my European model is doing. This is kind of a favorite of the weather weenies, of which I am one. I think this is a pretty good model. It's pretty accurate most times, and it's something to look at. I will say this is one of my furthest models to the south. So throughout the morning, it's very much quiet, and we can see as we head towards about 10 o'clock, 1 a.m. on Monday, it already starts to push that snow in. But watch how it keeps that snow line, that sleet, freezing rain snow line down to the south. I mean, heck, it brings in a period of what could be potentially moderate snow through parts of Southern Maryland, with moderate snow barely getting up to the state line. I don't know if I buy this too much. I'll describe why here in just a moment. But it barely gets that mix line even up to Southern Maryland, like at all, with that secondary area of snow. I will show you what this model is doing in terms of snowfall totals, with the caveat that this is not a forecast. There we go. So with that caveat, let's go ahead, show you what my model is putting out in terms of snow totals. Ooh, there we go. And you can see it has a bullseye right here through Southern Maryland. And that's because, as we just saw, that's where the heaviest snow is set up, with maybe you get a few inches in parts of Southern Pennsylvania. This model has been slowly inching to the north. I mean, if we were to compare this to my last run of this same model, you can see that that was further to the south. So it's kind of inching north a little bit, closer to some of my other guidance. I think that this is overdone for several key reasons. Let me bring this all the way back. And I want to use something I don't think that's going to have anything on it. Let's go ahead and erase this. And I want to get more of a mid-Atlantic view of this blank map. Can I do east? Okay, disregard the stuff it has all the way down to the south, because I don't think there's something I can use that doesn't have. Yeah, that's fine. Our low pressure system this evening is setting up shop over southern parts of Missouri and is going to be working its way to the east. Our European model likes the idea of this storm taking a much further track down to the south, and I don't think that's too likely. I think it's going to end up verifying just a little bit further to the north. I have now at this point about 11 and a half years of forecasting these sorts of events, and in my 11 and a half years of experience, it is very difficult when you have a storm track like this that that is coming straight west to east, just north of the Virginia state line, that's going to jackpot snow totals or give you your highest snow totals in this region. It's very difficult. The way that typically will happen is if we have a storm that is going like this and heading out to sea. That is what will bring Southern Maryland higher snow totals like the ones my European model is showing. Think back to like January 2022 when we got that kind of surprise snowstorm that dropped 15 inches of snow. It was heavy, wet with winds, and it was a hot mess express. It's a storm that took this kind of a track. In my 11-year storms that bring Southern Maryland the highest snow totals out of the Mid-Atlantic take a track like this. What tends to happen, because we would call this almost like an overrunning situation of sorts, where you have your area of low pressure that is going to track just like this. I think it's going to be just south of our region. You have cold air that's filtering in from the north. No strong area of high pressure, but you are getting cold air down. And down to the south, let's use red. That's where your moisture is coming from. Not only is that air from the south becoming moist, but it is also warm by comparison. Moist air tends to be rather warm air. And by warm, I'm talking like it would bring temperatures into the 40s, right? Too warm for snow, though. So as these begin to meet up, that's where you then start to get your winter weather north of the track, which is all fine and dandy, right? But what we tend to see on the southern flank of this, too much warm and moist air slides through, and that southern zone goes over to sleet rather easily because it does not take much at all to start to see that become the case. So if I had to draw an updated snowfall forecast map at this current moment, which is a little bit difficult to do, really want to wait until tomorrow, but I'm really kind of favoring, if you have DC, we're going to say an area kind of like, maybe that's a little too north with it. I'm thinking an area kind of right through here is going to be where you see some of your highest totals. I could see this being a zone that sees like a 6 to 10 inch amount. Outside of that, I could see a 5 to 8 inch amount through Southern Maryland shore. And of course, all of these would be totals that kind of swing further back into the mountains. That would be more like your 5 to 8. So that's kind of your 6, your 5. Snow totals to the south, I think, drop off rather quickly because you're going to start to see some mixing happen. So I think you can get a 3-inch line potentially down to Richmond and a 1-inch line just to the south. And I think north of there, you're seeing your 3-inch line get right to Harrisburg and Philadelphia, and then you kind of shut it off quickly with 1 inch north of there. So that would be kind of a general overlook. This is a very rough kind of map. Areas I would be the most concerned about mixing are going to be, and clearly these zones, right? Like that's going to mix. This is going to mix. And I really do think that these zones all through here are going to be ones that mix. I will say, though, that if my zone right through here, right, I think this is a 5 to 8 inch amount with slightly more kind of right through here, right? That's your 6 to 10. If this southern, oh, you can't even see that. My apologies. Okay, so let's say that's my 5 to 8. We can see that now. Granted, my 8 looks wonky. And my 6 to 10. If we see a little bit more cold air and we're able to potentially see this system keep the warm, moist air a little to the south because the storm track's a little further south, I could see maybe this 5 to 8 inch area beginning to overperform a little bit. I would much rather see a snowfall forecast overperform than underperform those. So I think 5 to 8 is going to be a solid call for us right now. You have a lot going on. Just kind of overall with this. I can show you my latest run of the American model just to get you a nice idea of what it has going on. I'm getting to a point though where using these like bigger global models, as we call them, don't become too useful. But we went a little quick there. You can see by 10 p.m. And again, you got like Leonardtown right here. That's Leo. That's DC. Up here you got Harrisburg. Right, so those are kind of like our 3 clusters of viewership right now. You get snow starting to come in around 10. You get maybe even some heavy snow as you get towards 1 and 4. I mean, you can see my American model has some heavier snow between DC and Leonardtown. And at this point, it has already potentially 2 to 5 inches of snow. I'd maybe call it more like a 2 to 4 inch amount. But you already start to see that beginning to move in, and this is by 4 a.m. So by the time, getting close to wake up time, but then you see it has that mix of sleet and freezing rain kind of getting in here before eventually getting out of here. And then, I mean, you can see kind of when that break in the precipitation would happen between 1 and 4 o'clock. This is very light precipitation. It tends to make me believe that maybe not much is going to happen during that period of time. And then that gets out of here. My American model right now, generally, I mean, it also is favoring areas to the south. Again, I think it is a little bullish. I mean, I've had a very hard time with it. I mean, I would say 9 times out of 10 with systems like this, you're going to get your heaviest snow to fall in this region. That's typically where your highest totals are going to be. And you all know this because you all live here, right? Down through this region. This is always going to be where you're battling a little bit of sleet. You're always going to get something to mix in that's going to cause some issues. So that's the general overlook. Again, if we put the mathematical numbers behind it, this is what today my national blend of models wants to give the region. And actually what I can do is bring that up on this other weather computer and zoom in on it a little bit to help you out. Let's bring it back on over. Let's get my national blend of models. And let's go ahead and get winter snowfall. There we go. So you can see kind of what this does. Let's zoom it on in here. You can see it has that 6-inch line kind of getting right down here. Oh, seeing blue on blue isn't going to be that easy. You see, that's kind of your 6-inch line. It kind of gets your 8-inch line north of DC a little bit, snakes it through like Montgomery County, parts of Anne Arundel. So this would be like a 6 to 8. That might even still be a little bit hard to see. My apologies. But what my national blend of models also does, take a look at my ice accumulation here. You start to get that glaze of ice. So this is kind of all through here. Gets it all the way past Washington, actually. So this is all going to be your ice. And this is giving generally upwards of about up to a tenth of an inch of ice. So that's, something to keep in mind. But that's a general overlook of what we have right now. This is still kind of what I like right now. That battle zone of mixing kind of to the south. So if you have any questions, now is a good time to ask them. I figure I try to get this live in here before the start of the Bengals-Steelers game. And as I look over, I see Joe Burrow kind of warming up right now. It's a pretty big game. I'm rooting for the Bengals. I'm a Washington fan, but I would like to see Joe Burrow make the playoffs. Let's see. When do I expect it to end? Jen, you're going to have a hard time flying out Monday night. Oh, and I will say before I start getting too deep into answering questions, if you want to know how much snow your backyard's going to see, that's the reason we got a snow ticker at the bottom. But I think traveling is going to be difficult throughout the day Friday, or throughout the day on Monday. I think flights are going to be impacted. Travel is going to be impacted. Melissa wants to know about winds. That's a good point. I keep meaning to bring up winds, and then I forget I'm bringing up the winds. So that's a good question. Let's take a look at that real quick. Let me bring it back on over. With this event, winds are going to be coming out of the north and west for much of it. Let me get you wind gusts. I don't want to swath. There we go. And let's bring this back. We're getting close to this model getting a new run in. So this is kind of going through the day Sunday. And then as we begin to get towards storm time, winds, while not necessarily too crazy, you can see, I mean, this is 11 a.m. on Monday. Could have a little bit of snow and sleet around. You're getting potentially some 20-mile-per-hour wind gusts. So I don't think we're looking at the blizzard conditions that are going to be the most likely on out towards the Kansas City area. They currently do have winter storm warnings and blizzard warnings out there. Some wind gusts, nothing that's too overly crazy though. Let's see. So I got winds, power outages. Kathy, I'm not too worried about power outages at this point, but we will continue to refine that part of the forecast. In terms of when is the ice going to fall, I think kind of anytime between 7 a.m. and let's call it like 4 p.m. is fair game. It's not going to be icing that whole time, but that's when you can get some sleet showers, some freezing rain showers. And yes, Jessica Hickman, that time chart will be coming out tomorrow with the final call, as typically happens. And it's a nice way to break down the information. Yes, Kari, we are looking at the Bengals. I don't know. It feels weird that Joe Burrow's had a really great season. It's just that his defense is horrible. Flight is Tuesday. Just was going to stay up there Monday night. Jen, you're going to have a hard time, I think, getting up there Monday night. Let's see. What time do I think this starts around the Chester, PA region? Probably closer to about 4 a.m. or so, on up towards the Philly suburbs. So ice is not going to be a major issue in far southern Maryland. If it's going to be an issue anywhere in southern Maryland, it will be in far southern Maryland. This is kind of my ice forecast, and you can see glaze up to maybe 1/10 of an inch through much of southern Maryland, and potentially to 1/4 of an inch of ice down towards the Fredericksburg area. So it might be hard to read that chart that's up top, but when you're under 1/10 of an inch, icy spots are expected. You want to be aware of driving or walking on pavement, as some areas will be icy, some areas not. But when you're talking 1/10 to 1/4 of an inch of icing, you want to limit unnecessary travel. Untreated paved surfaces will likely be glazed with ice, and some scattered power outages could be possible. I think school closures are likely everywhere on Monday. I will have school odds out tomorrow with the final call forecast. I'd like to get that out in the morning, but we'll see what time I wake up. But I think school closures are going to likely just about everywhere. Tawanda, Lexington Park, of course. Imagine if Lexington Park got nothing on Monday, like at all. It was just sunny skies. School for Monday and Tuesday. School closures are likely Monday. We'll see what happens Tuesday based on what happens Monday. Hey, Andrew, making it on in. Was curious if you believe your odds are the storm possibly tracking further north in forecast with more. Yeah, Andrew. We talked about that a little bit. I can bring that back up though. In my experience, right, we've been doing this a couple years at this point. Not just a couple years, several years at this point. My experience here, if we just use a blank map, when I have a storm, right, that's going to track like this. And let's just even say for argument's sake, sure, it goes a little further to the south, right, just like that. You're going to have so much moist air coming north, and that's what's going to feed the snow, right? We know that. Well, sure, you're going to get winter weather kind of north of the track. All right, this is going to be your area. Look at that little, oh, that's still the black pen. Look, you have like little snowflakes. This is your area to see snow. My experience, every single time so far in my career, we'll see if it continues, is that warm air, that moisture is also going to bring just enough warmth through parts of southern Maryland, and it almost always helps to set up a band of heavier snow that almost always lines up like that. It almost always happens. One thing that is leading me to believe that to occur this go around as well, I want upper air. Is this not going to give me the upper air that I want? That's an issue. I would like heights. Maybe it's because of the zoom that I'm in. Mid-Atlantic. There we go, heights. So this is something that we have looked at continuously over the last few days. Where you get these bright colors, that's a lot of energy. And that's kind of like almost the source, if you want to think of it, of our cold air. We call it confluence. That's going to lift north, and we're going to see our storm system move in. So we're getting now into bada boop. This is Monday morning, energy beginning to swirl on in. And I want to actually use my NAM model here because I think it's not going to look as clunky. All right, so typically what is going to happen, we have a lot of upward motion happening right through this corridor, and that's right over southern Maryland. To the north and west of there is typically where you're going to get a heavy band of snow, and look where that would put that. Just north of Washington, D.C. Still some snow in southern Maryland, and that gets a little technical, my apologies, but that's kind of my thought at the moment. Let me bring this back here. We're going to talk a little bit more nerdy stuff later on. So yeah, I do still think that we're going to have a northern type of system. Looking at what you're thinking about 2:30 a.m. Monday, there's going to be snow. Schools in St. Mary's County will be closed. When will I be making a weather app? Eric, it's not worth it to me. The cost of building a weather app is astronomical, and getting people to redirect to my website is difficult enough, let alone forcing people to not use Facebook to access. At this point, I'm okay not having a weather app. Yes, Angela, my commanders, we love to see it. Do I think this will be a snowy year? Casey, that's kind of hard to say. I think we see a pattern shift late month, kind of mid-late month, towards a warmer pattern again. So we'll kind of see what we can get done here in the next 2 weeks to see if we can get some good snows. And see what areas are considered southern Maryland. So Jamie, when I think of southern Maryland, I'm thinking Calvert County, St. Mary's, Charles, southern PGs, southern Anne Arundel. I'm sure the news might be saying up to 10 inches. That's not my current forecast, though. Let's see, I got Grape Mills. Okay, Chester, PA. Let's see, do we see a secondary low forming with this? 100% we do. I want to see if I can bring it back on over here. I can take off the timestamp because that's just going to get in the way. So as we take a look here, and this, let's use just like our white scale NAM. We can see we have snow pushing into the region. This is getting into Sunday, then Monday, and you get a little wintry mix to the south. So as we pull away, it might be hard to see, but we're getting these little contour lines right here. So this represents areas of pressure. So this tells me there will be a little bit of wind on the backside of the system. But where you get all of those kind of clustering, you see a little bit of a circle in the middle, that's going to be a new area of low pressure, and that will be a coastal low that develops Monday night, and that's what's going to help connect up, just like that, and help to bring in snow as this system pushes out all together. Now we're at 8 o'clock. Game is slowly about to start. I think we're getting most of this room to southern. Oh, of course, southern Delaware. I mean, as I moved up to PA, the map just needed to expand anyway. Let's see. Do you think this will be as? I think I answered the snowy question. JB, Prince Frederick, Anne Arundel. Oh, there goes Calvert County on the bottom ticker. So just take a look down there to see what Prince Frederick is. Can we agree that if you have, you need an emergency, you need to stay off the roads, of course. Nancy, I don't think southern Maryland's seeing 11 to 13 inches. And yeah, Andrew, these storms always trend north. Even when we go into the storm thinking it's going to verify south. I'm thinking of January 2019. It looked the entire time like we'd see about 5 to 10 inches in southern Maryland. And we saw like 4 to 8. That part verified. But areas north of D.C. saw even more than that when they shouldn't have. So. Leonardtown, you're looking at, that battle's on a heavy snow and mixing. Where are the school prediction map? Hey, Jessica, I'm also a teacher, so trust me, people have been texting me. I mean, it is very likely that schools are going to be closed. When I issue my school lots forecast tomorrow, almost the entire thing is going to be red to denote a high likelihood of closings. When do you think things will start to get dicey across the Thomas Johnson Bridge? I mean, just getting snow, like driving that bridge with snow is a little bit dicey. I think the weather starts to become dicey itself after about 4 a.m. All right. Lots of questions about what's going to be following my neck of the woods, and you got the snowfall totals at the bottom. All right. So I think that just about gets us all together. So I appreciate you all joining me this evening to do a quick quick, 35 minutes later. Look at the forecast. I will have my updated final call forecast published tomorrow morning at some point. And I'll have updates throughout the evening on kind of what's going on and what to expect. So stay tuned here to JB Weather for the latest information. I appreciate you all giving me your time this evening. And we will continue to track all of this as, again, we have cold air, lots of stuff going on, and that's going to lead to snow. Highest totals I do still think are going to be to the north. This is just the raw model output, but we will see an update to the forecast tomorrow on my side. But I still do favor widespread heavy snow, sleet south of DC with that band of heavy snow going through northern Maryland. All right, that's a safe one, and keep it tuned right here to JB Weather for the latest information.
Check the forecast anytime online at jbweather.net.